sky is the brightest inside of me. All the best intentions outside I'm free. From the hand that's holding me, I am free from me.
Another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I'm your host, Bill, season ticket holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. Thank you for bearing with us for an extra set. Well, what would you say, Chris? About 85 seconds? Well, we dealt with some technical issues.
4 minutes.
Jeremy Rogers says he misses the Perfect World song. I love it. Guys, I love what an eclectic collection of like random songs that aren't copyrighted that Chris seems to own, because he's like, oh yeah, I met that guitarist out by a dumpster once and he emailed me that song, and they all rule. I love it. It's part of the Rockpile experience.
Well, so for context, we've played some AI music from the band Sid Ariel, and I'm friends with the former singer Jonas. They're no longer making music, but he started putting his songs through an AI app just to hear how they sound in different genres. And he's like, oh man, I'd love to hear, I'd love to be able to play, put therapy through AI. And I'm like, wait, you don't have that song that you wrote? And he's like, no, I've got like Morning Sun album and Perfect World EP. I'm like, I have all of your music. Would you like them to send? I'll send them to you. Do you want a physical copy or emailed? Because I have both. But I wanted to ask you, and anybody out there, how was your weekend of no football? Little preview for next weekend, because we're going into no football. I don't know about you, but this past weekend I went and donated my body and I modeled. So I had a great time modeling. Got a lot of woos.
What?
Yeah, I did it last year.
Where do you model? What the hell are you talking about?
I was in a fashion show.
Oh my God, where? I need to know everything about this.
Well, how about this? Jessica and I were, because she was helping out with the fashion show run by her friend, and we're on Seneca Street, and this big dude was going across the street to go into like a convenience store, and I'm like in traffic. He's probably cut in between two cars that were two ahead of me, and a big dude, probably like 350. And I'm just saying in the car to Jessica and Benny, I go, dude, please fall. Please fall. You're going to try to walk over this snow mound into this convenience store to step up on. Please fall. He fell twice. It was amazing.
See, not only are you an idiot for being in a fashion show, but you're also a bad person. That's why we get along. Guys, welcome to a week in the Buffalo Bills history books where we just anointed brand new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. And tonight we're going to spend some time diving into each of them. But just to get into the swing of things, really get the podcast underneath us before we get rolling, really let people have time to filter in. You know, a lot of people watching Turf to Tape right now with Cover One, or have just stopped watching the Sal Capaccio, Eric Turner joint, which God bless him.
You got
both.
So many options right now. Thanks for spending it with us.
Thank you for spending it with us. I want to start right off the top with our hero and zero of the week. Runner up for hero of the week, Q42 barbecue president and Doritos connoisseur Iman Azizi. I don't know if you guys know this. Chris, throw the tweet up for him. For the last 3 to 4 years, Iman has been randomly taking pictures of Doritos prices on the shelves at grocery stores and tweeting about them in a fake serious tone. It's all has to do with shrinkflation, right? It's going on over the same package size, but just less volume inside the bag, but then larger per ounce prices. It's almost like he's been treating Doritos price as a legitimate economic indicator. And it's been hilarious to see how much of it's been turned back on him over the years and been politicized. Like, he tweeted a photo of like just random, he just put post-election Doritos prices and tweeted that out. Nothing, no context, didn't quote tweet anything. It was the day after the last election. And both sides of the aisle attacked him mercilessly. In reality, he's just a dude who drinks a lot of whiskey and has a poor diet and is just trying to make himself laugh. Today, he is vindicated because the Morning Brew tweeted out that PepsiCo is going to cut Doritos prices by as much as 15%. Chris, he did it. By bringing to light the Doritos crisis, he put them on the map, and that's commendable. Raise a glass to him. Guys, bring it up in the chat. Drinks up in the chat for Iman Azizi. But the real hero of the week, Lindsey Vonn of the U.S. ski team.
Don't take it personally, all right? Franchise star players are a lot like Highlanders. There can only be one.
We're used to watching Josh Allen power through injuries like they don't matter. The guy breaks his foot, doesn't matter. Separates an AC joint, he'll walk it off. Just torn UCL, now I'll rub some dirt on it. I'm Josh Allen. Lindsey Vonn is the U.S. Olympic equivalent of Josh Allen. She announced today that she tore her ACL during qualifying, and she is still going to put a boot on and go compete. Even if this ends poorly, she's one of the most fearless people I've ever seen in my entire life. Do you want to know why? Now, don't take this the wrong way, but consider it. Damar Hamlin almost died during a football game. And it was a defining moment of how some of us consider our relationship with football. How many other athletes have lost a life doing the football? The thing that Josh Allen navigates in this way, where he just plays like his hair's on fire and like he's invincible. How many football players have ever died? The number in the modern helmet era is small, and it's usually after games or due to complications of injuries taken during games. But do you know how many people die a year from skiing, Chris? These are healthy people who have all their faculties. Do you know how many people a year?
Sonny.
30 to 50. It took Sonny Bono. It took Sonny Bono from us. Picture this. You're doing a minimum of 40 miles an hour if you're doing the slalom. A minimum of 40. And if you're doing the alpine downhill, you can be anywhere from 75 to 90 miles an hour downhill. No roll cage, no helmet, no shoulder pads, just a skin-tight bodysuit and the hope that somewhere there's a higher power looking down on you. And Lindsey Vonn is going to go out there and try to do that on a bum wheel. Love of the game. I'm not going to lie. It's insanity. And she's the hero of the week for even considering strapping him on for the USA over there in Italy. And then the Montucky cold snack, ice cold, zero of the week. The guy who sucks so badly he makes me wish I had more of these. It's Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots.
You folks fell on your face. You get an F- in my book.
Last week, we sat here and laughed about Bill Belichick not being voted into the Hall of Fame at his first bite of the apple. Because process be damned, that franchise needs a little schadenfreude. They need to be knocked down a peg. Robert Kraft getting denied? That's hilarious. That's objectively funny. We've talked about him as one of the better owners in the sport simply because he had something. He had success. He had a winning quarterback, a winning coach, and he decided not to get in the middle and meddle. And I think that alone, like the fact that a billionaire was willing to put his ego aside because he's like, look, it's working. I'll extricate myself. That's a win. Also, just like Belichick before him, lingering concerns over scandals, lawsuits,
rub downs,
ne'er-do-well behavior. The voters gave him the cold shoulder in his very first go-round for the Hall of Fame. And that's a humbling thing for a guy who up until this season was probably just warming up to the idea that he might be treated like an also-ran. Like his franchise up until the last 5 years has been top of the world, right?
Yeah, what is it? He was out by one vote, I believe it was. I know Belichick was out by a vote.
Now, what makes me laugh is that Tony Dungy on Media Row this week at the Super Bowl was asked, hey, did you vote for Bill Belichick or Robert Kraft? And this was his quote. I'm not going to make a comment on it. We'll just find out who's in and who's out, I guess.
That's a no.
Cold-blooded from that Chappelle show sketch. He just gave them the business. You know who he voted for. I love it. Good for both of them. People can decry the process. They can say the voters aren't using the right logic. Well, I'll tell you what, that's the same thing Bills fans have been saying about Steve Tasker for 28 years. Oh, the logic, and that's it. You can all suck an egg. If my favorite linebacker can't get into the Hall of Fame, neither can you, Robert. Kick rocks, and I'll sip a Montucky to that. Oh, God, that's so good. Montucky Cold Snack, the official, unofficial beer of Montana, but the official beer of the Rockpile Report podcast, available at a Fatty Beer or Consumers Beverages store near you. It is funny because I really came into this thinking we could lead the show with Hero and Zero, being someone on the Bills staff, because after last week's press conference debacle, I assumed someone would have made a mess out of this. But lo and behold, it turns out the Bills can pull off press conferences without embarrassing themselves. Do you know who was missing from that process?
Who's that?
Terry Pagula. Is it funny to anybody else that this thing stopped being a circus the second Terry extricated himself from the process? I warned you it wasn't going to go well. And even last week when I kind of got mushy about the fact that the spirit of his approach, his wife being unable to take the helm and him kind of bravely going out there, he doesn't replace the fact that he's kind of a mushmouth and probably shouldn't be behind a microphone anymore. Which is why you promote Brandon Beane to the office you did. Good for you, Terry. Now step aside and let real professionals handle these things. And sure enough, this press conference, and in fact, all of them went off without a hitch, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
How much of them did you watch?
I watched the Joe Brady press conference, and that was it. I heard Allen said some interesting things, but I mostly stuck to Joe Brady.
Do you guys think... You guys watching live in the comments, I want to know your opinion. Do you think Sean McDermott was somewhere watching that Joe Brady, Brandon Beane press conference going, oh, come on, screw these guys? Because some of it was really heavy-handed. I mean, let's get down to it. I honestly thought the Josh Allen press conference had more meat on the bone, and I found it more, I don't want to say informative, but a better watch. And I think I felt better about that than I did watching the Brady and Beane press conference. I mean, let's look at, they were very complimentary of Sean, but their choice of words and the key words they kept repeating over and over again make it clear they see the Joe Brady hire as a departure from a lot of what Sean brought into the equation during his time here. And when Brady talked about needing time to, I know we need to throw the ball down the field more, and Brandon Beane goes, yeah, it's my job to make sure he has the pieces to do that. I swear to God, I could picture Sean McDermott being at home, like the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme, going, hey, that's the thing. He's doing the thing. There it is on TV. That's the thing that he wouldn't give me. What the hell? This guy just showed up day one and he gets that? Oh, come on. I wish I could have watched that with Sean McDermott. I think that would be fascinating TV.
No, here's my Sean McDermott prediction. He's going to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles after next year. Eagles will fire Sirianni for McDermott. You heard it here first.
Joseph Fryer, I think Brady gave a great send-off to McDermott. I think he did too. And I think that they were all very complimentary. And like I said, they did a classy job of talking about how they wanted to pass the torch and how they felt like this thing needed to go. With that said, I've seen so many takes about everything that came from that press conference. Like, I expected more. I didn't watch it until Sunday when I was recaulking some windows in my house, because that's what I did with my weekend. House projects. And, like, everybody's like, I don't know. I heard people saying that they were sold and that it made them emotional. And they're like, oh no, this guy, he's genuine. I'm big into this. We're all in. And I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to be hot takey, but this felt like a nothing burger to me. When I listened to Bean and I listened to Brady, I feel like talk is cheap, so I'm inclined not to believe the things I hear in those sorts of well-prepared, very obviously prepped environments anyway. Like, the things that coaches say to you on those stages don't win games. They don't win Super Bowls. They don't get trophies put in the case, because if they did, Rex Ryan and Greg Williams would already have their name on the Bills' Wall of Fame. Being a tough guy or being articulate or sounding like the smartest person in the room when you get hired is not what's important. I was actually far more interested in Josh Allen's press conference. So going through Josh Allen's presser, unlike the one where, they talked about the coach, Josh talked about his inclusion in the coaching hiring process, which I, on this podcast, decried and pointed out. I said, listen, this is a problem. This is how you end up with a finalist group that looks the way it does when there's a Gary Kubiak's son out there who is not getting a look. I almost called him Gary Kubiak.
Clint
Gary. It doesn't
chose
fucking
the
matter.
Raiders.
He's not my coach. He's going to go coach the Raiders, which is good luck to him. Maybe he can be the Bills after we win the Super Bowl. And the Bills are looking for a new offensive coordinator in 3-4 years. Maybe Clint Kubiak can come work here then. Josh mentioned uncomfortable conversations that he got to be a party to as a part of these head coach interviews. And I love the concept of that, because you invite your quarterback into the room and go, Josh, we want your opinion. You're the pulse of the locker room. You're the leader of this team. You're all these things. And then they go, hey, Joe Brady, like, we've got problems to fix here. What are you going to do about them? And then you're in the room going, wait a minute, are they talking about me? Like, to hear Brady have to describe the ways that he would clean up Josh's problem areas, challenge Josh, tell him to get together and he's got to focus more. Not from the mouth of a hard coach who admitted, Sean McDermott admitted that he might have been too abrasive in the run-up to what was last season. He softened his approach, and that's when you see him out there doing snow angels with Josh Allen. And it's like, okay, cool, they're friends. It's like, yeah, sort of, but it's you're trying to replace more than half a decade of just a hard-nosed, hard-to-work-with guy behind the scenes, by all accounts, overly abrasive, overly aggressive, and then you try to fix it over a year or two. It just doesn't, I don't know. So you're going from that to this guy, and you're going, well, how would you fix it in a way that McDermott couldn't? And he's like, well, so maybe you're hearing some critique, especially from a guy with an offensive background and a quarterback's coach background and a background with you personally. Have to critique the minutia of Josh Allen's worst game-costing moments and go, this is what I'm going to fix about this guy, because I don't think he knows it. Like, has anybody here in the chat watching had to hear from the mouth of somebody else all the ways you suck? Like, you're a third person in the room? Like,
I hear it every week off air from you.
Imagine sitting through that. Like, I've got a story that I can share. When I was working in collections when I was younger, one of the guys who owned the Petrie Cookie Factory in Silver Creek, New York, was one of the co-owners of the agency. And they held a meeting where they were talking literally about headcount reduction. And I made the cut. And then there was an argument about, well, he's here, but also whatever. And this guy looked me and the guy that we were talking to in the face. I'm in the room. He looked at me. He looked at all of his business partners. And he was like, this is supposed to be the best and brightest who are going to make the nut off the money we're investing in this stuff. Yeah, this guy's good. He's also lazy. He cuts corners. He's unmotivated, and I don't know how to motivate him. I've cussed him out. I've yelled at him. I've tried to incentivize him. I don't know what to do with him, and I don't think he's workable. And I'm sitting there in the room just listening to this going, holy shit. And then after the meeting, I was like, Mike, you were pretty tough on me in there. And he goes, Gear, right now you're crap. That's what you are. And maybe someday you won't be crap, but it'll require you to actually put some effort into anything that you do. He's like, you can coast right now. But if you ever put any real effort in and just applied yourself, you'd stop being crap and you could be something special. I wish now as a professional, I could send him a bottle of scotch and a fruit basket as a thank you, because I needed to hear that. But it's weird being in the room for it when they're talking about you like you don't exist. And I have to imagine that's some of what happened to Josh, having to be a part of that, hearing it from his presser. I also, look, I'm just looking at the comments, a throne like triple. Oh, Jesus, what are we talking about here? I don't think Drew can handle sitting in a throne. He'll just talk about the throne
Somebody
every
wants
show and forget about football.
They want a Montucky throne for you to sit on.
Oh, dude, we could build one out of 12 packs. We could do it right here. We'd have to get a platform and figure out how to make it swivel.
Yes.
Yeah. Got to keep the motif. So I also thought that Josh taking ownership of Keon in his presser was ballsy. Ballsy, but it's what you do if you're a leader. Look at the performance Keon Coleman had in 2025's regular season. Benched and also ran a player that people in the fan base, people in the media, people on the team, the head coach, everyone at some point or another essentially wrote off and said, listen, anything we get out of this kid is house money because he's useless. And then he came on for us in the postseason. And that matters. In the biggest games, Keon Coleman was available and made plays. And here's Josh Allen stepping up in his press conference going, no, I'm going to work with you. He's like, I'll never give up on him. And I'm going to work with him tirelessly until we can get him to where I know he can be.
Which is somewhere else come May.
But that's leadership. Go back to Aaron Rodgers' press conferences as of like the last 2 years. Every time that guy hits a challenging part of his career, he's more than willing to throw somebody under the bus for his failures. You know, during the pre-record session, you pointed out how every time I'm late, it's never my fault. It's somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
Oh, it's traffic. It's my kids. It's this thing. It's that thing. It's never because I just didn't prepare well enough and leave the house in enough time to get to where I needed to be. I feel like Josh is taking ownership of Keon, the way he publicly defends him. And I think that that's what a leader needs to be. And I think that that's telling about, you know, for all the people who are talking about him being traded. He'll be here next year. He'll be here next year. And I firmly believe that maybe, but look at the playoffs, Chris. Look at those big catches he had for us. Also a hilarious drop, but catches. And I think that maybe with a little more focus, this kid could be something. And I also think it was funny. There was a moment that you only get to see in NFL press conferences where Josh's entire demeanor changed because he's out here yucking it up with the media. These are his friends. These guys are here. We're going to ask softball questions. I'm going to give you. He kept answering things in a way that you could tell someone prepped him. He's like, just bring a Lombardi to Western New York. He must have said that phrase at least 5 times, which tells me the media people prepped him to keep like, hey, if they ask this sort of question, say this. Just say, bring a Lombardi to Western New York. And then all of a sudden somebody asked like, hey, Josh, so your inability to get it done in the playoffs, like this, that, I can't remember how he finished the question, but I was more focused on Josh because his entire posture changed. It would be like this. Chris, say something to me.
Did you talk to your father this weekend? Of course you didn't.
Listen, I don't know what kind of question you think that is, but I know that we're very focused, and I know that if I wanted to do that, I could, and I know that we will. I know that I will talk to my father this weekend. Just you watch and see. It was that kind of a moment from Josh that I'm like, there he is. There's the guy. He's still got it. The guy crying at the podium, okay, he's emotional. The dude who I bet you in an unfiltered scenario would have a lot of choice words in that moment. All right, that fire's still in there. You're turning 30. Last offseason, you said some crazy things about I'm more than a football player and I'm this and I'm that, blah, 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 blah. I like that. I like seeing that uncomfortability, and I like watching him flare up a little bit. Go back and watch it. Guys, I implore you, go watch the Josh presser. I took more away from that than I did from the Brady and Bean thing.
Pagula wasn't there, so that was a win.
But honestly, that's the most interesting part of what they're building as a staff here, right? Like they're trying to change the mentality of a team that constantly gets tight in the most important moments and folds. I think the way it was phrased was always a bridesmaid, never a bride. And you could watch Josh bristle at that. It's going to make a lawyer that I know really upset when I say this, but the latest Ty Dunn article really does tell a story. It tells a story of a staff and a group of players who felt like, for all his composure at the microphone, like the self-imposed pressure that Sean McDermott put on this franchise, and then lack of a pivot and lack of adaptability when things started to rock and roll back against him in the playoffs, was one of the reasons the Bills don't have a Super Bowl. And it's hard to walk away from that press conference that we saw over the last week and not think that. They basically said it. They were like, we need a fresh energy in the room. Yeah, because the message got old. And also, everyone got tight in the biggest moments, including him. And also this idea that internal accountability. You guys wonder why Brady kept saying, accountable, I'm accountable, it's me, it's on me, this thing's on me. It's because Sean McDermott, if you believe Ty Dunn and the sources he has, had a history of not being accountable for those things. And some of that goes directly back to the 13 seconds fiasco, where he allowed everybody else to bear the weight of that and was like, hey, you guys need to go, literally told his staff, you guys need to go home and just relax and decompress and think about how you're never going to let this happen again. What do you mean you? Stop. Who are you talking to, Sean? These are the reasons that he's not here. And honestly, the more you hear about it, it's shocking that it wasn't done sooner. Realistically. Like, internal accountability could change a lot. I also saw some things for people who were like, oh, Sean McDermott got a raw deal. You know, I saw the social media feelings. Last week, we broke down all the new faces that made the NFL postseason this year. That made runs, that embarrassed the blue bloods of the AFC. I can tell you what, the type of turnover you saw this year in the NFL is what happens when owners and GMs feel like they're getting lapped by less talented franchises. Jacksonville, New England, like this is what happens, guys. And for the should have run it back with McDermott crowd, that's not how any of this works. The day that New England makes a Super Bowl or goes to a conference final and wins the division and you have Josh Allen, you get fired for that. If it happens next year, I guarantee you Joe Brady will be on the hot seat. But he's got a year to do it. Also, I think that now that we've had a week to decompress, go through the 7 stages of grief, and come back around on the Joe Brady hire at L, I think that it's worth noting that some franchises decided that like they needed continuity. The thing that a lot of Bills fans who were upset at the dismissal of Sean McDermott were upset about. Myself, it was more the way and the lack of transparency, but some people were legitimately upset that we didn't run it back with Sean McDermott. And you look at some of these teams like Kansas City. Do you know that the lunatic fringe of their fan base, like the Rockpile Report of Kansas City, was getting hammered on a Wednesday night screaming about how Andy Reid needed to be fired? Which is hilarious. Like, that's objectively funny. The only change they made as a franchise was ditching Matt Nagy as offensive coordinator and bringing in Eric Bieniemy. Who they had a lot of their Super Bowl runs with. Meanwhile, some teams blew up everything. The entire AFC North, the Titans, the Rain. Like, think about this, Bills fans. If the Bills had made that change, if they kept McDermott, but swapped out Babich for a better named defensive coordinator, or they promote Ryan Nielsen and go, hey, we have a problem. It's obviously our defense. I know what's going to change it. Let's bring in Ryan Nielsen as the D coordinator. Would anybody here actually feel better about any of this? Anybody?
I wouldn't.
Like, we've watched what's going on the offensive side of the ball. You had Brian Daboll. He graduates to a head coaching position. So you bring in Ken Dorsey and you fire him in the middle of the season. You bring in Joe Brady. You still don't go to a Super Bowl. And then the following year, he's your offensive coordinator and it's the same team and you don't go to a Super Bowl. And then this year, you don't go to a Super Bowl and your defense once again implodes. And you go, okay, well, if you're just going to keep blaming coordinators for all this, at a certain point, there needs to be ultimate accountability. You're the one appointing these guys. Maybe you're the problem. Like, I don't know. So now we're here, right? And you wonder what's going to be different. You hear the things. Joe Brady's younger. He's a little less of the militant, stoic in public, angry behind closed doors, plays his cards close to the vest. Chris, I mean, wardrobe. Can you imagine the wardrobe problems they're going to have? Like, imagine being the team and trying to be like, we're doing a photo shoot, and we went from Sean McDermott to Joe Brady.
I mean,
flat brim caps.
I honestly thought when it was announced he's head coach, I was wondering if he was going to walk out for his press conference in a suit, but then also have a gold chain on over the tie, like a 18-year-old child.
It is very funny. The way he dresses is, again, funny. I also love that we joked that the Bills media staff and PR staff, Chris, if you want to tell people about the text you sent me, as soon as the Bills PR staff put out the first pictures of Joe Brady at Joe Brady in his office.
I'll have to find it.
He goes, Joe Brady's the type of guy who shows up to a wedding. He was like, this is your first day of work and we're supposed to take you seriously, and you're wearing a gold chain and a t-shirt in your office. He goes, Joe Brady's the guy who wears black denim to a wedding and tries to convince you it's workable.
Yeah, I actually had that at the fashion show on Saturday.
Every time you say I had it at the fashion show, it just gets funnier.
No, but it was Jessica's friend who ran the show, Heather. Her son who's like 11. He was wearing a blazer, white button down, black tie, and then had denim on. I'm like, dude, are you trying to pass off black jeans as dress pants? And he was like, this is what my mom told me to wear. I'm like, your mother's got problems.
Fatal. So with that in mind, obviously there will be changes. There's changes coming. You have more youthful energy. You have a positive approach. You've got energy. You've got all these things, all the buzzwords you want to throw at that. But the staff is going to be dramatically different as well. And I think that goes a long way towards showing you what the Bills want to be this year. And I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to dig into it right here, starting with offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael. Now, there's a really under-discussed dynamic of his addition to this team. You know, all the major podcasts, the daily guys, the Cover One guys, they've all had their bites at the apple when it comes to talking about these things. I don't think I'm reinventing the wheel here. Instead, I just want to talk about some things I think might have been under-discussed. When Sean McDermott was hired in 2017, one of the first things he did was go out and find a tenured partner to join him on the defensive side of the ball. And that almost seems to run counter, right? Because if you're a really successful D coordinator who just attended a Super Bowl and you're hired as a head coach and you go, hey, wouldn't you want the best young, up and coming, aggressive almost head coach caliber DC to help backfill you so that you can keep this vision of what you think an NFL team should be alive? Like, I'm thinking at the time he could have brought in a Gus Bradley. He could have brought in a Robert Saleh. He could have brought in a Jeff Ulbrich. All of these guys have gone on to be D coordinators elsewhere in the NFL and done pretty well at their stops. Instead, he brought in what seemed like an underwhelming hire in Leslie Frazier. Frazier had 14 years experience as a play caller, kind of similar to Carmichael's 15. And that experience allowed McDermott to not have to worry about all of the minutia of the defense while he was getting his feet wet, going from, hey, I'm used to calling the game on defense on Sundays, but now I've got a Monday through Saturday job of just making sure that this entire operation goes off without a hitch, that every department is doing its job, that the offense is in sync, that the practice is going well at the offensive line group. Do I know what that looks like? Hell no. So I need to know that I've got a veteran who's got my back while I branch out into these other areas of being the CEO of a football team. And I find it fascinating that Carmichael is the pick here, because I think it runs along that same line of Leslie Frazier being the Bills hire back in 2017. Just having that much experience at your disposal is a terrific way to start your process as a brand new head coach in the NFL. Terrific safety valve. Just quality assurance for a coach who's going to be, like Chris, he said he's going to call plays. McDermott didn't do that. Realistically, you're not going to have time to call your plays, set up your own play call sheet, do all of your own game research for the install for what plays you might need, and then also do the rest of the things a head coach has to do.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of work for Joe Brady.
It's why Wade Phillips was hired for Sean McVay. Wade Phillips got hired out in LA when Sean McVay was young because he needed another guy, a tenured, experienced coach in the building who could do a lot of the QA stuff and let Sean McVay do what he did best. I think this is a move in that direction, and I like it. I do. I also think statistically there's some stuff going on here that doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to Carmichael. 11 straight years of top 10 offenses for both yards and points scored. And yet at the same time, the blend between Brady and Carmichael is fascinating because even though Carmichael's offenses, with Sean Payton calling the plays and Carmichael acting in this same type of almost, hey, I'm going to be an advisor. You know, I'm going to help you. I'm going to organize on game day. I'm going to build your play call sheet. You're the play caller. You go out there and actually execute on game day, but I'm going to do a lot of the work so you don't have to as head coach. When he was out there doing this for Sean Payton, they had a ton of offensive success, but a lot of it was passing. A lot of the strength of their offense was throwing the football. And when you think back to the running back talents that the Saints had during Carmichael's time there, you're talking Mark Ingram, you're talking Elvin Kamara. His team had really pedestrian rushing numbers. They were 15th or worse in rushing yards 9 times in the 15 seasons he was there. 8 times those offenses were 15th or worse in rushing attempts, which means not only were they not efficient at it, they didn't do it much. They were below league average in running the football, just by and large. They said, we're willing to live and die through the air. I think that that's awesome because, again, if you look at what Joe Brady's problem has been, Chris, he produced a league MVP, but did Josh have the best passer numbers that year? Isn't every Ravens fan's beef with us?
Yeah.
Oh, Josh won the MVP and he didn't have the best passer numbers. Nope, we didn't. Also, did Josh have great passing numbers this year?
Terrible.
I wouldn't say terrible, but not great. Not front runner, not MVP caliber. Carmichael finished in the top 10 for net passing yards 13 times in the 15 seasons he was labeled as an offensive coordinator. 8 of them were top 5 years. You don't just trip and fall into those. And you can say it's all Sean Payton, but I can tell you what, Sean Payton's Broncos teams are having a hell of a time. And then Carmichael comes along and they're like, oh, okay, things are starting to improve. Carmichael even managed to get this type of production on a Derek Carr at one point.
Hell yeah.
Like, this is what I'm talking about. Carmichael seems to have an acumen for how to structure passing attacks, and he's made downfield threats out of Juwan Johnson, the tight end, Rashid Shaheed, all of these guys who the Bills were, every fan was screaming that Chris Olave. He built the offenses that those players thrived in. And at the same time, he sucks when it comes to trying to play in a rushing attack. Look at what Joe Brady does best. Since Joe Brady was anointed as the head coach, remember when he took over for Ken Dorsey and everyone watched Steph Diggs' stock just plummet? And all of a sudden it became hey, we're going to run a lot of heavy personnel. We're not going to flow through any one wide receiver. We're not going to be a high volume passing attack. We're going to run the shit out of the ball. And we're going to coach our offensive lineup to execute these run plays to a point where that becomes another dynamic part of our offense. And then this year, so now in what, Chris, 2 years of being a full-time offensive coordinator, he's had a league-leading rusher and an MVP quarterback, mostly on efficiency. I think Carmichael's acumen in how to structure a passing game is exactly what this offense needs to be the yin to Joe Brady's yang when it comes to how to and when to call a run game. And that might be the most underrated part of the entire hire. Here we go. Frazier rumored to be Kubiak's DC in Vegas. Probably because Kubiak's not dumb. Kubiak probably needs the same thing Joe Brady's doing right now. He's like, I need veteran coaches on my side. Now, it's funny because where Kubiak's going to go veteran D coordinator, the Bills went the completely opposite direction on the defensive side of the ball with defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard. Now, this is one that I know Anthony Prohaska, he was just on WGR this morning, taking a victory lap about the fact that he's been calling for Jim Leonhard for 2 years to the Buffalo Bills. And I'm not going to lie, there was a moment where I had visions of Brady keeping Babich around and the two of them showing up like Tonawana's version of Night at the Roxbury. Like Chris Kattan, Will Ferrell, they're just going to show up to training camp dressed the same, matching flat brim hats. Jim Leonhard being named the coach, like it really does. It says some things about what they want to be and what they want to do, because it's one thing. This came up during the, I will say I did take this away from the presser from Joe Brady and Brandon Beane. They talked about aggressiveness. And then you read the Ty Dunn article and Pete Gwelly talked about how a lot of guys say they want to be aggressive and then don't know how to bring that to fruition. They don't know what that means. Think about this. Jim Leonhard's not one of those guys. I'm happy to know we don't have to worry about that. Everybody who talked about the DC hire would have been okay with Jim Schwartz, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Everything we saw on social media, all of you guys over here in the comments, Jim Schwartz was talked about as a guy, bring him back to Buffalo, had great pressure numbers. His third down success and his statistics were phenomenal. Well, Jim Leonhard at Wisconsin, when he was a D coordinator, playing in the Big Ten, which is a championship winning conference, excellent third down success statistics. Almost outlandishly successful. 2019 to 2021, Wisconsin had a top 5 defense in terms of offensive efficiency for their opponents. And in 2021, offensive opponents completed 29.3% of their third down passes. That's crazy. When it came to money downs in football, Jim Leonhard knew how to confuse opposing quarterbacks and force negative plays. And then he brought that acumen for coverage systems to the Broncos, who languished in Vance Joseph's first season. And then he joins the staff, and all of a sudden they're this playoff caliber defense for the next 2 years. And continuity, I think there is some carryover to what you get out of that and what you get out of Jim Leonhard in terms of what he brings to the table schematically. Almost never uses cover 0, rarely uses cover 1, shows a lot of cover 1, and then post snap rotates into a double high look. And now the quarterback has to completely reset his feet, reset his expectation as far as where's my first read. That is one of the most damning things. If you can pull it off in college football, you'll ruin most quarterbacks. If you do it in the NFL, that's just good business. You almost have to be able to do that in the NFL. It's one of the things that the Bills did in that second half when they came back against Drake May. They would wait until the 15-second mark and the microphone cuts off. And now your offensive coordinator can't help the quarterback. And then they change the defensive picture. And that quarterback's alone on an island having to diagnose in real time, snap the ball, and just try to get the ball out. And then to kind of support that, it's just simulated pressures. I know you hear the smart people use that term. It's what we've been doing under Sean McDermott. Walking your linebackers right down into the A and B gap pre-snap and then bailing them out into zone coverage. It's not that great of a departure from the things that this locker room is already used to doing schematically. Now, there will be some things that have to change, right? But at a core level, there are a lot of things that Jim Leonhard will do here. He'll just do them more aggressively than what we were doing before, especially in those pressure moments.
And a core value is our listener base skid valve for half a tank of gas in California. What's up, guys? Taking a break from NFL for a few weeks, but I will rest easy knowing Drew will still be making sure everyone knows they are dumb.
If he's saying they, it's us. Yes, we are the dumbest people on earth. Skid Valve, I love you. It's this concept of you got to dig into what they want out of this. Look at the roster now. I've seen the tweets. How about Michael Hoyt? Like, if you talk about a team that wants to be multiple and they want to be flexible with offensive linebackers and on the defensive line, everyone talks about 3-4-4-3. That doesn't matter anymore. Hoyt, if it wasn't for this damn Achilles injury, might be like the silver tuna for this defense. I'm interested to see what his timeline to recovery looks like, knowing that he probably won't be 100% now, but even into next year under this D coordinator, because he's the type of player you want to target. The guy who can line up as a traditional 4-3 end or who can play off and drop in coverage. You need flexibility with an outside linebacker type body in order to do that. Deion Walker, he and Ed Oliver could be a lot of fun in this system next to each other next year. TJ Sanders, like, throw him in, throw Deion Walker in. I throw, what's his face? Oh my God, the kid from Duke.
The guy they got
He was at the veterans event. I was talking to him. I got my picture taken with him, and now Whiskey. I can't think of his name. Doesn't matter.
Somebody in the chat,
please let me know. I want to know, let's see, I want to know more of who you guys see gone and who stays in the new Leonhard scheme. Well, how about this?
Dwayne Carter.
There it is. Spin, thank you. Dwayne Carter's a big body, and if they can coach him up, you don't necessarily need to be 350 pounds. You just need to be a guy who can take a center head on and understand this is your job. Don't get moved. And the rest of this scheme will pivot and flow around you. It'll be interesting to see how they find that role. Because if you think about types like Jeremy Rogers, I want to know more about who you see gone and who stays. I've seen everyone clamoring for Justin Strnad. They go, oh, Justin Strnad, he's a side-to-side downhill linebacker who you don't want in coverage. You know who that sounds like? Dorian Williams. We already have one of those. Maybe it is the Walmart version of Justin Strnad, but what I can tell you is Dorian Williams is growing as a football player, and his speed and his athleticism. Like, this is the guy who chased down Jonathan Taylor on a free run all the way down the football field and saved a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor is a freak athlete, and so is Dorian Williams. Dorian Williams, his instincts lack, and as a linebacker, that'll get you killed. So the Bills may have their work cut out for him trying to figure out who fills that instinctual, athletic sideline-to-sideline linebacker role. Who can scrape across the defense, go fill lanes. Matt Milano's going to leave. Matt Milano's gone. Maybe the most interesting one. Chris, what do you do with an Epinesa type? If you look at Epinesa and Rousseau's the one getting the paycheck. Epinesa's the one you said, hey, listen, we'll sign you to a mid-level contract and you stick around. But now you're talking about a defensive scheme that sometimes asks its ends to not just pass rush, but also drop in coverage. Sometimes have a little bit of ball skills. Epinesa is a much better fit for that type of role than Greg Rousseau is. Is there a world where Greg Rousseau stays? Or can the Bills go into the draft and find another Greg Rousseau type, just not at the second round valuation?
I believe this year's heavy on edge in the draft, but we don't want to touch on the draft till we have to at the end of March, early April.
It's very interesting to me. And then you talk about safety. So we actually, from across the pond, we got a message from one of our British listeners who he's too old to stay up and watch this in real time. But he asked about what this hire and like the D-backs coach hire does to the job that DeMar Hamlin currently has in this roster. Well, I'll tell you, they only retained him on a one-year deal. I think that knowing what we know about what this group is, they'd probably be more inclined to keep Taylor Rapp since he's already under contract and it's relatively cheap. If you cut Taylor Rapp, you're only saving like $2 million in cap space. Throw some darts in the draft at a possible replacement for 2027. But I bet you DeMar Hamlin doesn't see a Bills uniform again next year. I would be willing to make a Seagram's bet on that. Because the way that this safety room works, instinctually, athletically, you look at what Jim Leonhard had to work with in Denver, what he did in Wisconsin.
Anthony Simonelli in the chat, Cole Bishop and Hoyt are going to fit well in the scheme. Bernard, not so much.
No, Terrell Bernard's going to have a problem. He's going to have to find a home, and I don't know what that home is. And this is where you start to question whose signings were these. Is this Bean almost admitting like, yeah, I kind of let the coach get away. You know, I let the fox into the hen house. He made some of the business decisions, and now we're paying for him. Hell, I work for a company that has done some of that recently. Shh, don't tell him I said that. But with that said, I think that Hamlin, I think that Rousseau, I think Bernard, I think these are guys who there's some real questions about how do you fit here now? There's a whole new archetype, and I need flexibility, I need speed, I need impact. You don't give them to me. What do I do with you? I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see how they solve that. But Jim Leonhard's scheme, you know that from watching all the other smart podcasts. Everyone
Move
else
Bernard to safety. Per Tory 71.
It's fascinating that we have a guy whose statistics look a lot like what Jim Schwartz did just at the collegiate level. Now he's going to get a chance to build his own staff and call his own plays and run his own defense. There'll be some growing pains, I'm sure, between what we knew and what we see next year on the field. I also don't think it can get worse from a tackling perspective, can it? Can't get worse. I defy you to try to find a way to make this defense worse next year. Everyone goes, oh, you don't have Joey Bosa. Oh, so I don't have a gross liability in the run game? Great. Did Joey Bosa get to double-digit sacks?
Doubt it.
I don't think he did. So everyone who's worried about, oh, the archetype and this and that, we're so relax. It's fine. We weren't that good anyway. We also have some other additions. Maybe some guys I'm less bullish on, like offensive line coach Pat Meyer.
I mean, well, first of all, this started because, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half ago, I had asked Drew, because, I'm like Charlie Kelly, like, can't use my words properly, because I use the word hot seat. But I guess, is there a position coach coming into this season that is immediately going to have a magnifying glass on them? Or is what they do going to be amplified to a different level? Because for me, I will be watching how our offensive line reacts to Aaron Kromer being gone, and then we're bringing in Pat Meyer as our offensive line coach.
Did you just put that graphic up?
Just put it up.
Awesome. There's some big shoes to fill for this guy. I mean, it's hard to believe that Aaron Kromer showed up, changed our lives for the better, and then unceremoniously disappeared. He's like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, to be honest. And now Pat Meyer has to try to keep this whole thing on an even keel. It's also concerning that, yes, Pat Meyer had a run of success when it comes to the Steelers. Hopefully that's him coming into his own as a coach. Also, his history before showing up at the Steelers, who just also, like, his arrival coincided with them investing multiple two first round picks and multiple top 90 picks in offensive linemen. Like, maybe his success was born more out of a team that just said, hey, we're going to go draft the highest level talent we can get our hands on in this regard. Before that, his history was rocky, to say the least. Okay? When he was the Carolina Panthers offensive line coach, He got fired 2 years into the job because he had allowed the 5th most sacks in the league over that time span. That's like his lines were a sieve. That's not great.
But that's also Carolina owned by David Tepper.
Sure. Then you go back, though, 2017 to 2019, the Los Angeles Chargers. He's working for the Chargers, who we all know this was their albatross. It was the Colts with Andrew Luck, and it was the Chargers with Phillip Rivers.
Was that under Anthony Lynn?
It was under Anthony Lynn. Because Anthony Lynn didn't get the Buffalo job, and he went out to the Chargers and had that head coach job for 3 years. In those 3 seasons, his offensive lines ranked 24th, 30th, and 29th in the NFL in pass rush win rate or pass block win rate. So, on one hand, you look at that and say, oh boy. And it is hard, right? When you have a guy like Aaron Kromer, who is probably like the closest thing we'll know. When you think about Don Scarnecchia being the best.
Yeah. Kromer's up there.
Scarnecchia. So Kromer's probably right up there in the same conversation as some of the greatest offensive line coaches of all time. It's not going to go well taking over for that guy. Ask Kalen DeBoer trying to take over for Nick Saban over at Alabama. Also, he sucks. He's kind of a turd.
Dude, that's one of my favorite things about you with Alabama. This Hall of Fame coach retired. Let's just go get another one. And then you get like a B+ coach and you're upset about it. That's what I fucking love about your
he can bite
Alabama takes.
He can bite the fattest part of my ass. So I honestly think that losing Kromer is minimized in terms of continuity by the play caller and just the fact that the offensive philosophy that Brady being around will bring, because it'll play to the strengths of the guys that are here. And that ultimately will be the determining factor in whether or not they live and die. If you just think about how many times we spammed duo runs this past year. Well, guess what? If we can bring back most of what exists on the offensive line,
the Carolina game,
then they can just keep the Steelers game. There's multiple games where they ran duo, and then they're like, oh, we can just keep doing this. Or, hey, there's this run we can do. There's this pass set we can get into that we know we can defend Josh and give him all day to look downfield and throw the ball. Knowing that.
Meyer was assistant to Kromer his first go around in Buffalo and in Chicago.
Well, then maybe it's maybe it's meant to be Ralph Wilson Sr. Ralph Wilson Sr. in the comments with a little nugget there. Then maybe it's meant to be that he comes here, takes the helm, and picks up Kromer's work where he left off. What I'll say is the other advantageous thing, besides the scheme not really changing in terms of offensive identity, is also the fact that a lot of the heavy lifting's already been done. The coaching, the working on technique, the building of young guys in the pipeline to being backups. It's been one of the most fascinating things about the Bills to me for the last 3 seasons is that we have guys like Ryan Vandermark and Tylen Grable who you can throw out there in big moments, put them at either tackle spot, and you wouldn't, I don't want to say you wouldn't miss Deion Dawkins or Spencer Brown. There's a reason they're multi-millionaires, and these guys are in the pipeline still. But you don't notice them as egregiously as you would expect most teams putting in a backup. Kromer really worked up the guys in that offensive pipeline.
Especially Spencer Brown.
Well, Spencer Brown, but Vandermark. How about Alec Anderson? Now, we don't know what Cedric Van Pran-Granger is. And the odds are he probably won't amount to much. He's a 5th-round offensive lineman. But if he can become a guy, you saw in the playoffs when Connor McGovern had to come out of a game, they put in Alec Anderson at center. I have a feeling there's an organizational belief that he can be their center at some point on a cost-controlled basis, which is why I'm very interested in how free agency goes. I want to see if the Bills try to keep Connor McGovern, or if they realize his price tag is going to be too high and they have to spend money elsewhere to remake this roster, and they decide, hey, we're going to trust it to an Alec Anderson. We think he's coached enough that he can make it. And then what do you do to fill David Edwards' spot? He's going to get paid more than the $4 million he was worth. You're going to have young guys stepping in here, whether you like it or not. There's going to be some draft picks on the offensive line. Some of these guys who have been in the pipeline for a while are going to, if not one or multiple, are going to step to the forefront and take starting jobs. This guy's job, or at least his employment history, says he's not great at this. But at the same time, maybe Cromer's already done a lot of the heavy lifting, and that'll insulate him to a certain degree. All I know is he just has to avoid driving what has been a well-run ship into the rocks. Just like that movie, like Dale and Brennan did in Step
Boats and
Brothers.
hose.
And if he does it, I'm going to flip out like Robert Doback. I'm going to have an absolute aneurysm in my retirement dinner. The other coach who Chris did not make a graphic for, because I did not prep him for that, DB's coach, Jay Valai. And this is a good one. This is one I really like. He had a cup of coffee with Alabama. That's not why I like him. My point of interest on him is that Oklahoma University was in the NCAA playoffs because of their defense. I mean, their offense was static as hell. It was up and down. Mateer, their quarterback, kind of a running, short, white guy quarterback who's not very accurate. Like, there was a lot of volatility there. Brent Venables is the head coach.
He's the man.
And when it comes to being a D coordinator in the NCAA ranks, Brent Venables is a stud. His system is known for just using a lot of exotic pressure and coverage packages in tandem to confuse young quarterbacks. They believe and live and die by aggressive play. Does that sound familiar? Maybe a guy aligned with the new defensive coordinator philosophy. Valai got brought to OU to co-defensive play call under Brent Venables. Not as a DB coach, where he'd worked previously. You know, he played in the league. And then he proceeded to go to OU as a co-defensive play caller. And I think it speaks to the way that Brent Venables viewed Valai and his work with secondary communication and just the needs of a scheme where he says, look, if I'm going to dial up some exotic pressures in the front seven, I have to know that my guys in the secondary are communicating, that they're smart, and that their eyes are trained to understand what this scheme is going to do, like what guys are going to do in front of you, but also what the scheme requires of you. Like, you'll hear things like pattern matching is a buzzword that smart film guys use to tell lay people like Chris about the game of football. The reality is pattern matching is switching from zone to basically pseudo man coverage on the fly, just understanding what the play is doing in the moment. Brent Venables' system was built on DBs who could pattern match. Not just spot drop and go, hey, I'm playing a simple zone. My job is to run 6 yards downfield, turn around. If a guy runs in my area, I've got him. No. Brent Venables gives people hell. And he does it because his defensive backs, he runs games and stunts and twists up front. And then at the same time on the back end, his DBs and his safeties are so adept at looking like a zone, but then latching onto a guy and just following them and carrying with them across the field. It takes intelligence, coached intelligence, to reach that level for a defense. That's where Jay Valai's inclusion in this staff underscores to me that they're not just, when they're at the podium and you hear Brady talking about aggressive, hey, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to dictate, we're going to do this and that. This isn't just window dressing. He's putting together a staff who their whole philosophy is, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to do things in space that stress your quarterback. When you hear Brady say things like, well, you know, I talked to Josh about the things that put us in the most conflict. I want that in my defense. They're bringing it slowly but surely, coordinator by coordinator, assistant coach by assistant coach into the house. Like, it's phenomenal that all of this is coming to a head now. Like, they're not just out here saying they're going to build a bully like Rex Ryan did back in 2015. They're doing it. They're bringing in the coaches who can coach up young guys who over the next two, 3 draft classes can bring in some real talent and say, look, this is what we want to do.
Anthony Simonelli in the chat, Jay Valai's body archetype is what I dreamed to reach one day.
And if you guys have ever seen a photo of Jay Valai, he's probably the most jacked human being I've ever seen.
I believe like the press release photo they put out is him wearing like a tight hoodie. It's like conforms to his muscles.
His body fat ratio is below 10%, which is hilarious as I sit here with my gut out drinking whiskey with a beer, with a drink in each hand. Guys, it's amazing when you see the complexity of the people they're building this staff around. Defensively, offensively, philosophically, Jesus Christ, the whiskey, philosophically, the play style there. They're not just talking about being a thing. They're trying to bake it into the DNA of the coaching staff so that hopefully it manifests itself on the field. I like the direction of things. I don't think that there's a Bills fan that can be mad about any of these hires. And that's Brady included. I think at the end of the day, we all got over the hard feelings of the day. Chris, is it pathetic that a petition went out to rehire Sean McDermott?
Yes.
It's sort of sad that had to happen. At the same time, we are an emotional fan base. It's what makes us special, I think. And in that way, I want to believe that they understand that. And they understand that, listen, people are getting antsy. We have a building to fill. The worst case scenario for this franchise is that you move into a new building and you don't succeed. You fall flat on your face. I don't think that's going to happen. And the more I watch them flesh this coaching staff out, it doesn't seem like they just made a gratuity hire. They said, hey, well, you were the next man up. You're the oldest guy in the building, so we're going to promote you to this role. And hey, it'll pull butts in seats and people will stop hand-wringing for 5 minutes. I see a philosophy here. Not just in, hey, these are the words they're saying at a podium. The way that they're hiring strategically tells me that everybody here fits a role. Everybody here has a job. Something they bring to the table specifically to kind of carry out what they feel like the identity of the team should be. Can you imagine what this safety room could be like? Former DB who played next to Ed Reed, Jim Leonhard, along with Jay Valai, former co-offensive coordinator for one of the most aggressive defenses in all of NCAA Power 5 football. I think there's a lot of good you can do there. Give them a couple rookies, see how it pans out. Same thing on the offensive side of the ball with Carmichael. Hey, I orchestrated a passing attack that took a tight end nobody wanted and turned him into a downfield threat. Do you know how many times Juwan Johnson at tight end saved people's fantasy football weeks? It's crazy the amount of production that he got having limited talent at his disposal. I think that Carmichael's another one of those guys who you have to throw some draft chips behind and go, listen, I'll give you some young talent. Show me what you can do with it. Will 2026 be the year the Bills win the Super Bowl? Probably not. But it looks like you're building a thing. And I can see what you want out of this. More than anything, that matters when it comes to a coaching staff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The special teams coach hiring was a head scratcher, and Arizona Cardinals were 30th in overall special teams. I don't think it was special teams from Arizona. I think Steve, it wasn't the wide receivers coach was from Arizona.
Where did the special teams coach come from?
Who knows? Who cares? At this point, I'm so tight. Everyone wants to talk about how smart the special teams coordinator was last year. Chris Tabor, he's a genius. Yeah, genius? It took you half the season to realize that Ray Davis was the best kick returner in football? Shut up. Boo.
2018 to 2025.
Boo.
Special teams coordinator for Arizona. 2019 to 25, also assistant head coach. So I don't know how much that matters.
I don't know. And then I saw people talking today on social media about the wide receivers coach, and they're like, "Oh, does that mean that the Bills are going to trade for what is his name?
Drew Terrell?
No, who's the wide receiver from Arizona?
Oh, Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Marvin Harrison Jr. They're like, oh,
or Dortch? Greg Dortch?
Listen, Greg Dortch is a guy I've loved forever. He's just always been on cost-controlled, team-controlled contracts. He's never really been allowed to be available in free agency. Greg Dortch is awesome. But I thought it was so funny. They're like, oh, we got this guy. Does that mean that they're going to trade for Marvin Harrison Jr.? I bet you could get BTJ for the same amount, and he's more polished.
Yeah. I saw the internet throwing out Marvin Harrison Jr. trade options involving our first-round pick.
Well, unfortunately,
I don't think that's a thing.
Oh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Those people should go. See, I almost said something terrible. See, guys, this is why liquor and podcasting is a hilarious balance. You have to know what you can and can't say. I'll leave you with this. I think the next couple weeks, we're obviously going to go watch a shitbag Super Bowl that no one cares about. I don't care about it. And then the real football, like the league year starts
beginning of March. So we have like a 2-3 week window where we as podcasters get all our takes in, get to talk about free agency and what we think. And Chris and I are going to make half a dozen Seagram's bets with you guys. And then we get Pat Moran in for that.
Oh, please.
Give him diabetes.
I was going to say that we'll kill him. He's too old. Pat, I love you. But it's the idea that we're 1 week away from the opening of the window where we get back to work. We get to talk about free agency. We get to talk about how they reshape this roster ahead of this season with the cap space they have on hand. I don't know. I'm fascinated. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds and really start digging into it. But for this week, we're all just going to batten down the hatches, drink our faces off, and try to ignore the fact that the New England Patriots are once again in a Super Bowl. Ew. As I sip Booker's, Chris, this Booker's is amazing.
Who else liked Drew better when he was fat? Joey. 4th and Inches.
Guys, Joey from 4th and Inches, the podcast that actually costs us half our listener base. Joey's single-handedly responsible for turning off almost half of our active listeners, and I regret nothing. I do this for me, but also for you. I do it for catharsis, and also because you guys show up every week. How could I let you down? Guys, it's right there. We're on the doorstep of the next step of the offseason. The coaching staff is really kind of crystallized. We see what they want to do. Now we got to find out how they want to build it. I can't wait to watch how they attack free agency. I've got some thoughts. I've got some ideas. We've got some smarter people than us that we're going to bring in to talk about it. But for this week, all we can do is drink and lament, lay down, bleed a while, and then rise and fight again. Guys, I love it. Hopefully you all enjoy your Super Bowl week as much as I'm going to. But for tonight, we got to get the hell out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. This has been your Rockpile